Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going deep on this pretty intense topic you sent over.
Yeah.
White sexual imperialism.
Mm.
Specifically, like, how it's affected Asian women.
Yeah.
Historically, but also, like, even today.
Mm.
And I gotta say, reading through this stuff, it's heavy.
Yeah, for sure.
But you've obviously, like, done some thinking about it already, which is great.
Yeah.
So we've got these excerpts from this big scholarly article.
Okay.
It gets into, like, all the legal and social stuff.
Yeah.
Really fascinating.
It is. It is.
Real eye-opener, to be honest.
It is.
But maybe for, like, our listener who's like, okay, what is this white sexual imperialism thing? Like, you don't hear that phrase every day.
No, not really a dinner table topic.
Not really, no.
But like the simplest way to put it, it's how Western colonialism and imperialism really like kind of messed with how people see Asian women. Like even today, it's saying that like the West, with all its power over the East, that really led to all these bad stereotypes.
Yeah.
About Asian women and their sexuality.
Okay, yeah, looking at these historical events you pulled out, it's rough. And, like, this theme keeps popping up, right?
Yeah.
Asian women as, like, super sexual, but also submissive.
Right.
I mean, the article even says stuff like...
Oh, I know, the language.
It's wild, small, weak, erotically alluring, almond-shaped eyes for mystery, like cherry lips.
It's almost like a caricature,
It totally is.
And the why behind that, that's what's important. It's not just some random cultural thing. It's totally tied to this whole Western imperialism thing.
Okay.
Like way back when European powers and then the U.S. later, they're building their empires, taking over huge parts of Asia, forcing their own culture and ideas onto everyone. And that includes their views on sexuality.
So it's not just geography. It's about who's got the power, right?
Exactly.
The West basically dominating the East.
Yeah, exactly. And you see that in everything, like from the books and art they made to their politics and even like military strategy.
Yeah.
Remember that Kipling poem, The White Man's Burden?
Oh, yeah.
Talk about blatant, right?
Right. Like straight up telling Westerners to go colonize Asia.
Yeah, to civilize them.
Because they're inferior, of course.
Yeah, that was the thinking.
And wasn't Teddy Roosevelt all about that?
Oh, big time. Like a lot of people back then, he saw colonizing Asia as like this manly test.
Right.
A way to show how strong they were,
Yeah.
Dominating the world. Like the Philippines, after the Spanish-American War, they became America's little colonial experiment.
Yeah.
And how Filipino women were treated, just awful.
Yeah.
Your source even mentions American soldiers calling them, get this?
Okay.
Little brown thing machines powered by race. Just, wow.
That is, I mean...
It's dehumanizing.
Dehumanizing, yeah. Like clear evidence of sexual exploitation just everywhere.
Yeah, totally. And the sad part is that way of seeing Asian women, it didn't start with the Philippines.
Right.
Not at all.
No,
not at all. It's like these attitudes about Asian women, they just kept going.
Yeah.
Like World War II.
Oh, yeah.
That's like the worst example.
Yeah.
You can't talk about this and not talk about the comfort women.
Right.
That system the Japanese military had is basically sexual slavery, and it was huge, like so many women.
Yeah. And what got to me in this article is how it changes after the war.
Oh, yeah.
Like you'd think with Japan losing, that'd be the end of it, right?
I didn't think so.
But
nope.
Yeah.
Actually, the article talks about how American soldiers were exploiting these women too.
Oh, wow.
After Japan surrendered.
So they basically took over the system they were fighting against.
Yeah, pretty much.
God, that's just...
I know.
Like messed up on so many levels.
It is. And it just shows that for a lot of people, Asian women were just seen as like sexual objects.
Right.
It didn't matter what the politics were.
Yeah.
It was like this ingrained thing.
And you see that same pattern in other wars too, right? The article mentions Vietnam and all the R&R places in Thailand.
Right, where the sex industry just exploded.
Yeah, because of all the American soldiers.
Exactly. It's just like a perfect storm, wartime, these power imbalances, and just seeing women as objects.
So this isn't just like a history lesson, right?
Yeah.
Like these attitudes stuck around.
Yeah, totally.
The article really makes the case that like white sexual imperialism has had a lasting effect on how Asian women experience the world.
Yeah, for sure. We're talking about a whole system of power here.
Right.
It shaped the laws, how cultures see things, what we see in the media.
Right.
All that stuff adds up to how Asian women are treated, both by individual people, but also by, like, society as a whole.
Yeah. And it's even in the legal system, right?
It is.
Like the Joe v. Japan case?
No, yeah.
That one really stuck with me.
That one's rough. It really shows how deep this power dynamic goes.
Yeah.
Even in places that are supposed to be about justice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Do you want to, like, remind everyone about that case?
Sure, yeah. So Joe v. Japan, it was this group of women.
Yeah.
They were forced into sexual slavery by the Japanese military, during World War II.
Right.
And they sued the Japanese government.
Right, to hold them accountable for the whole comfort women thing.
Yeah, exactly. And their argument was about this specific legal idea.
Right, that Japan basically setting up and profiting from the comfort women system.
Yeah.
That it was like a commercial activity.
Right, exactly. And if they'd won with that, it would meant that Japan could be held liable in a U.S. court under, like, an exception to this thing called the Foreign Sovereign Immunities Act.
Yeah, which would have been huge.
It would have been, not just for those women, but for anyone who's experienced wartime sexual violence.
Yeah.
Anywhere. But that's not what happened.
No.
The court said no, sexual slavery didn't count as a commercial activity.
I know, it's just...
It's wild when you think about how organized the comfort women system was, how much money they made off it.
Right.
It's like the court just couldn't understand the kind of exploitation that was going on.
Yeah, and to me, that shows just how strong those biases are, even in the courts. Like, they couldn't see these women, their suffering, as people.
It's like they were blocked by this whole white sexual imperialism lens.
Totally.
And what's even crazier is that they completely ignored what American soldiers did after the war.
Right.
Keeping that system going. It's like admitting that would mess up the whole America's the good guy story.
Right.
It's a reminder that we have to face those tough parts of our history, If we want things to actually get better, be more fair.
Yeah, totally. And this whole white sexual imperialism thing, it's not just something from the past.
No, it's not.
It's still around today.
Right.
And it's messed up.
It really is. And your notes have some examples that show just how widespread it is.
Yeah, like the one that really jumped out was how many Asian women are in pornography.
Oh, yeah.
Especially in stuff that's violent and degrading.
The numbers are crazy.
Yeah.
Like, over half the websites showing rape or torture, it's Asian women as the victims.
It's more than just how much there is, it's the types of scenarios they show.
Oh, yeah.
Like Japanese schoolgirls or Asian teens. Clearly, it's all about fetishizing youth and innocence.
And that goes right back to what we were talking about before, The whole history of it, this idea of the Asian woman as being submissive, innocent, and, like, always available. It's deep in Western culture, and the porn industry is just sadly making it worse.
And then there's the mail-order bride industry. That's where you really see that submissive Asian wife stereotype.
Right, like how they market these women as traditional and family-oriented.
Yeah.
It plays right into what some Western men want, Like, they don't like how modern women are, so they look for someone they think will be more subservient.
It's like they want to avoid all the challenges of equality.
Yeah, and the power imbalance in those relationships is really bad.
Oh, totally. You've got these Western men, usually older, with more money.
Yeah.
And they're seeking out women who might be desperate for a better life.
Right.
It's just like asking for exploitation and abuse.
Yeah.
And what stood out to me in your notes was how this case with the Princeton student, it wasn't just a one-off thing. Can you talk more about how this Asian fetish affects women every day?
It's not just the extreme cases, it's also the little things, The ways Asian women are treated differently, like their race and sexuality.
Right.
People fetishizing certain features like hair or eyes.
Yeah.
The pressure to be submissive or exotic,
right.
It can make you feel like less of a person. Like the article mentions David Daly and Edmund Ball.
Oh, God.
Who kidnapped and raped those 2 Japanese schoolgirls in Spokane.
That case was awful. It turned out that Ball, the one who planned it all, who was obsessed with Japanese culture, had this fantasy about Japanese women being submissive.
Right.
And he went after those students specifically because he thought they wouldn't report it.
It shows how dangerous these stereotypes are, how these fetishes can have real consequences.
Yes.
Sometimes really deadly ones.
And that's what makes this so hard to deal with, right?
Yeah.
We know that a lot of violence against Asian women just doesn't get reported.
Right. The data might tell one story,
Yeah.
But the reality is way more complicated. Like that Bureau of Justice study you mentioned,
Yeah.
it found that Asian women report rape and sexual assault less than any other group.
Right.
But does that mean it's happening less?
Not necessarily.
Not at all.
No.
Not at all.
So if the numbers aren't telling the whole story, like, why don't people report it?
It's complicated. A lot of it is cultural, you know?
Mm-hmm.
In a lot of Asian communities, there's this huge stigma around sexual assault.
Right.
So much shame.
Yeah.
Victims might feel like they have to stay quiet to protect their family, you know?
Right.
Or to avoid bringing shame on themselves.
Yeah.
Breaking free from that, it's really hard.
And I bet language barriers don't help.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe not trusting the police.
Totally.
Yeah.
If you don't speak English well, or you've had bad experiences with cops before,
Yeah.
you might not want to report a crime. It makes sense.
Right. And you might worry about not being believed.
Exactly.
Or being blamed for what happened.
It happens a lot.
The article brought up another case. It really shows this whole silence thing.
Oh, yeah.
The Japanese women who were exploited by American GIs after World War II.
Right, right.
It's just so sad to think that none of these women, despite everything, have ever come forward
to get compensation or even an apology.
It's like those societal pressures are just that strong.
They are. It can be almost impossible to break free. These women have carried this with them for so long.
Yeah.
Often alone, in silence.
It shows that white sexual imperialism isn't just about individual attacks.
Yeah.
You know?
No, it's not.
It's about creating a system that keeps victims quiet.
Yeah, a system that lets these injustices keep happening.
So, like, what now? What can we even do about all this?
It's a tough one for sure, but I think the first step is just knowing about it.
Yeah.
Educating ourselves. Understanding where these problems came from, how they show up today,
right,
and what we can actually do to fight them.
You know, for me, it keeps coming back to media. Like the images we see, the stories we hear, they can either make things worse, or they can challenge these stereotypes.
Totally.
What do you think? Can media be a force for good here?
For sure. We got to be more critical of what we're watching and reading and demand better representation of Asian women. Like, think about it. How often do you see an Asian woman who's a real complex character?
Yeah, not enough.
Not even close. And it's not just about how many, it's about the quality, you know?
Right.
Telling authentic stories that challenge those old narratives.
Exactly. And it's not just on-screen stuff. It's the conversations we have, the way we treat each other. We all have a part to play in stopping these harmful stereotypes.
We do.
And that's actually, like, kind of empowering, right?
It is.
It's not about waiting for someone else to fix it.
No.
We can take responsibility, work together to make things better.
And there are so many amazing groups out there doing great work to support Asian women fighting against this violence. We can support them, share their stories, get involved.
Totally. So as we wrap up this whole deep dive, what do you hope people take away from it?
I hope they understand, really understand how history has shaped how Asian women are seen and treated.
Yeah.
We've seen how white sexual imperialism created these harmful stereotypes.
Right.
And how those stereotypes still affect Asian women today.
Yeah.
From how they're shown in the media to the violence and discrimination they face.
It's been heavy.
It has.
But so important to talk about.
It is.
And to everyone listening, I hope this deep dive has given you something to think about. What media are you consuming? What language do you use? How do you treat the people around you?
Yeah.
Are you challenging those stereotypes? Are you supporting Asian women?
Those are questions we all need to ask ourselves.
For sure. This has been an amazing conversation.
It has.
Thanks for helping me explore this topic.
Of course.
And to everyone out there, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you'll be back for more.